Podcast Eating to Overcome Diseases. Welcome. Hello. I'm Wellness Torres and I'd like to welcome you to this new podcast designed for everyday people, without a lab coat, but eager to feel better every day. In the next 5 episodes, we'll discuss, in simple language, the book Eat to Beat Disease, The New Science of How Your Body Can Heal Itself by Dr. William W. Lee. Here you'll discover that food isn't just fuel, it's also a first aid kit and life insurance. What is the book about? Dr. Lee is a physician, researcher, and founder of Angiogenesis Foundation. He has dedicated his entire career to studying a common denominator shared by many diseases, blood vessels and how the body controls them. Through this lens, he began to understand that there are 5 internal defense systems that keep us healthy almost without us realizing it. 1. Angiogenesis, correct vessel formation. 2. Regeneration, the army of stem cells that repairs tissues. 3. Microbiota, the good microbes that live in your gut. 4. DNA protection, how your genes repair themselves and extend your lifespan. 5. Immunity, the central command against viruses, bacteria and, beware, also cancer. The book explains, with a wealth of research, that the food we choose each day can activate or deactivate these systems. That's how powerful your plate is. The great promise, eating to prevent and treat. Lee doesn't promise a miracle diet or an instant cure for all ills. What he proposes is harnessing the same science that goes into drug design, but applying it to something more accessible, everyday food. This way, instead of waiting until we're sick to take expensive pills, we help our bodies avoid getting sick, or at least get sick less often and recover better. That's a tremendous gain. Key benefit number 1, turning off the fuel hose of cancer. According to Lee, we all have tiny microtumors that, as long as they don't receive an extra blood supply, remain dormant and don't cause problems. The trick is to keep the angiogenesis surveillance system on. Foods like green tea, soy, berries, and even garlic contain molecules that block chemical keys needed for tumors to form new blood vessels and grow. Simply put, we starve them. Key benefit number 2, turn on repair mode. Your body has around 750,000 stem cells circulating. With age or poor nutrition, they lose their accuracy. Lee describes foods, for example, bitter cocoa, craft beer, yes, in moderation, black tea, or holy basil that trigger a recruitment signal to get more stem cells to your muscle, heart, or skin after a stroke or surgery. It's like calling the right bricklayers when a pipe bursts in your home. Key benefit number 3, feeding your micro-allies. Did you know you carry up to 40 trillion good bacteria wandering around in your gut? That's 40 with 12 zeros. If you feed them fiber, kimchi, natural yogurt, or even sourdough bread, they produce anti-inflammatory substances that boost your immunity, regulate blood sugar, and even improve your mood. They're like free mini pharmaceutical factories. Key benefit number 4, shielding your DNA. Genes can be damaged by UV rays, pesticides, or chronic stress. But there are fruits, spices, and vegetables that activate internal repair buttons. Examples include turmeric, pomegranate, extra virgin olive oil, and even filtered coffee. Furthermore, certain compounds lengthen telomeres, the caps of chromosomes, which is associated with slower aging. Key benefit number 5, tune up your immune system. Lee explains that 70% of the immune system is located in the gut, so it's no surprise that food is key. Mushrooms, walnuts, blueberries, and broccoli activate the natural killer cells that detect intruders and cancer cells. Other foods like jasmine tea or ginger help slow down when the immune system goes overboard and causes allergies or autoimmunity. Frame 5 x 5 x 5. In the practical part, the author presents the 5 x 5 x 5 tool. 5 defense systems, the ones we already mentioned. 5 food groups, fruits, vegetables, legumes/grains, proteins, drinks/condiments. Eat at least 5 protective foods every day. It's a kind of healthy bingo, choose what you like from each group and check off 5 boxes a day. There are no absolute prohibitions or obsessive calorie counting, it's about building your defenses, not living in penance. Opportunities highlighted in the book. 1. Democratize health, most protective foods are affordable and available at any local market. 2. Complement traditional medicine, it does not replace treatments, it enhances them. 3. Customize without complication, everyone creates their own favorites list, no more militarized menus. 4. Impacting public policies, evidence for governments to incentivize the production and consumption of medicinal foods. Before closing, I'll leave you with a teaser of the SWOT analysis we'll delve into in episode 4. Strengths, based on rigorous research, flexible, rich and tasty options. Opportunities, mass prevention of chronic diseases, reduction of medical costs, boost to local agriculture. Weaknesses, some evidence is in its early stages, and long-term human studies are still lacking. Threats, interests of the ultra-processed food industry, media confusion about fad diets, and the gap in access to fresh food in vulnerable areas. Closing of episode 1. And that's it for our first meeting. Today you learned that your plate can be a shield against cancer, a spare tire for your heart, an energy generator for your microbiota, and a software update for your DNA. In episode 2, we'll discuss each defense system in more detail, provide examples of everyday menus, and debunk some myths circulating online. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast with that person who refuses to eat vegetables or thinks healthy doesn't taste good. Let's spread the word. Food science can save lives and it doesn't have to be boring. Podcast Eating to Overcome Diseases. Episode 2 of 5. Welcome and review. Hello again. I'm Wellness Torres and welcome to the second episode of our Eat Journey. To Beat Disease by Dr. William W. Li. In the previous installment, we discovered that the body has 5 natural defense systems: angiogenesis, regeneration, microbiome, DNA protection, and immunity, and that the food we choose every day can activate or sabotage them. Today, we're going to delve into each system, provide examples of simple dishes, debunk common myths, and describe concrete opportunities for people from different walks of life. All in clear, direct, and straightforward language, so you can listen while driving, cooking, or jogging. Angiogenesis, regulating the blood highway. Imagine your body as a city under constant construction. Every cell needs well-designed routes to receive oxygen and nutrients. This engineering process is called angiogenesis. When the system works in balance, damaged tissues receive exactly what they need to repair themselves. However, when it gets out of control, tumors hijack the machinery and demand extra roads to grow. Dr. Li explains that certain foods act as biological traffic lights that prevent the expansion of unwanted blood vessels. Everyday examples: a cup of green tea in the morning, a tomato sauté with garlic and olive oil for lunch, and a handful of strawberries for a snack. These compounds, catechins, lycopene, allicin, and polyphenols, work together to prevent microtumors from getting fuel. To translate this into a concrete dish, think of a breakfast of hot oatmeal with blueberries, a pinch of cinnamon, and chia seeds, accompanied by green tea. Not only do you gently boost your metabolism, but you also kickstart your day with powerful angiogenesis inhibitors and, incidentally, prebiotic fiber that feeds your microbiota. The idea isn't to worry about counting grams, but rather to add several anti-angiogenic pieces throughout the day and let their effects accumulate. Regeneration, mobilizing the repair team. When you cut a finger or strain a muscle, your body sends stem cells, sort of like specialized bricklayers, to replace the broken pieces. With age, stress, and poor diet, these workers become lazy or lose their tools. In the book, Li cites studies showing how foods rich in flavonoids and phenolic acids, for example, dark chocolate with more than 70% cacao, well-infused black tea, and the occasional glass of craft beer, awaken stem cells and guide them to the site of damage. Add purple vegetables, like the purple potato, to the equation, and you've got a veritable rescue patrol coursing through your veins. A widely repeated myth holds that if alcohol is prohibited, any mention of wine is contradictory. The author clarifies, the resveratrol in red wine can be beneficial, but only in moderate amounts and as part of a balanced diet. A 150 ml glass with dinner is enough, and if you don't drink, you don't need to start. The same compound is found in dark grapes and peanuts, so no one is left out. Microbiome, cultivating your inner garden. Inside your gut lives an ecosystem of microbes weighing about 1.5 kilograms and producing vitamins, enzymes, and anti-inflammatory molecules. Dr. Li suggests 3 simple rules to keep them happy. First, consume at least 30 different plants per week, including spices, herbs, and seeds. Second, include a fermented food daily, such as natural yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, or miso. Third, minimize your intake of ultra-processed foods and added sugars, as they feed opportunistic bacteria that promote inflammation. If you often eat lunch outside the home, a bowl of whole grain quinoa with sautéed vegetables and chickpeas, topped with a spoonful of kimchi, is a fiber, protein, and probiotic powerhouse that fits in a glass container. Your microbiota will recognize it as a feast and respond by producing short-chain fatty acids, which travel through the blood and reduce insulin resistance, modulate immunity, and even improve mood. DNA protection, safeguarding your instruction manual. Your DNA is like the master file that determines how proteins are made and tissues are renewed. UV rays, pesticides, and chronic stress can damage that file. Certain foods act as maintenance technicians. Extra virgin olive oil provides hydroxytyrosol, turmeric provides curcumin, pomegranate offers punicalagin, and filter coffee supplies chlorogenic acid. Together, they ignite internal antioxidant pathways, stimulate repair enzymes, and lengthen telomeres, the chromosome caps linked to longevity. You can incorporate these protectors without complicating things. Drizzle olive oil on your salad, add turmeric and pepper to your lentil soup, enjoy a filtered espresso after a meal, or drink natural pomegranate juice. Remember, the effect is synergistic. You don't need megadoses of a single compound if you eat a varied diet. Immunity, fine-tuning your defense system. 70% of your immune cells reside in the intestinal mucosa. That means what you eat communicates with your defenses almost in real time. Shiitake mushrooms, walnuts, broccoli, and berries are the examples Lee highlights for turning your immunity into a ninja capable of distinguishing between a cold and your own cells. The active compounds lentinin, arginine, sulforaphane, and anthocyanins regulate the inflammatory response, improve surveillance against abnormal cells, and prevent excessive allergies. A simple dinner dish could be a broccoli and mushroom stir-fry with tofu, served over brown rice and garnished with chopped walnuts. This combination provides complete plant-based protein, fiber, antiviral phytochemicals, and healthy omega-3 rich fats. Practical menu for a busy Thursday. Many people believe that eating healthy means spending hours in the kitchen. It doesn't have to be that way. Imagine your Thursday starts with green tea and a whole wheat tomato sandwich with olive oil and fresh cheese. Mid-morning, you eat an apple with 10 almonds. For lunch, you have a colorful salad with chickpeas and sourdough bread. You snack on natural yogurt with blueberries and a drizzle of honey. For dinner, you have baked salmon sprinkled with turmeric, accompanied by steamed broccoli and quinoa. If you like, you can have a glass of red wine. With 10 minutes of prep per meal, you've unwittingly covered the 5 protective foods goal of the 5x5x5 method. Debunking the myths that hinder change. There are many misconceptions about nutrition. The first is that all dairy products are inflammatory. However, natural yogurt and certain aged cheeses contain probiotics and peptides that actually reduce inflammation. Another myth is that to lose weight, you have to eliminate all types of fat. In reality, the fats found in olives, avocados, and nuts improve satiety and regulate hormones. It's also often said that if a superfood is good, its powdered version is better. The book clarifies that extracts can be supportive, but the whole food matrix offers fiber and an orchestra of phytonutrients that powders miss. Finally, some argue that intermittent fasting makes food quality irrelevant. In reality, the ideal is to combine fasting windows with protective foods, otherwise, you're just postponing unhealthy food intake. Specific opportunities for different contexts. Some families cook on the weekends and spend the rest of the week reheating homemade meals. For them, the method suggests preparing a large pot of legumes and several trays of roasted vegetables, preserving everything in portions. This avoids the temptation to resort to fast food. In businesses and schools, it is suggested replacing soda vending machines with stations selling fresh fruit and water with natural infusions. For older adults, a light menu rich in polyphenols, for example, vegetable soups, oatmeal with berries, and green tea helps protect telomeres and memory. If you are an amateur athlete, a post-workout smoothie with cocoa, banana, and spinach accelerates muscle regeneration without the need for expensive supplements. Yellow lights, what the book still doesn't resolve. Although most of the recommended foods are based on solid studies, some compounds are still in the early stages of research. For example, lentinin from shiitake mushrooms is being tested in phase 2 clinical trials for advanced cancer. Furthermore, a distinction must be made between laboratory and practical doses. A paper cited by Lee uses 10 cups of green tea to achieve a maximum anti-angiogenic effect, an unrealistic amount for daily life. The author clarifies that it's not about drinking 10 cups, but rather combining 2 or 3 infusions with other sources of polyphenols, such as cooked tomato and garlic. It's also worth remembering that some foods interact with medications. Grapefruit, for example, inhibits the CYP3A4 enzyme and can alter the concentration of antihypertensives. Another challenge is accessibility. In rural areas without refrigeration, berries can be scarce or expensive. An economical alternative is dried hibiscus, rich in anthocyanins, which stores well and is infused in hot or cold water. The message is to adapt theory to local reality and not prioritize perfection over consistency. Community FAQ. Many people ask if drinking coffee neutralizes the benefits of green tea. The answer is no, they are different and complementary compounds. You can drink green tea in the morning and filtered coffee in the afternoon. Another common question is whether these recommendations designed for prevention are effective in older age. Evidence from the blue zones indicates that even at age 80, systemic inflammation can be reduced by consuming more fiber and less sugar. The question also arises about red meat. The method doesn't prohibit it, but advises choosing lean cuts and reducing the frequency to 2 or 3 servings per week. The important thing is that the dish always contains a good dose of antioxidants, such as a green salad with spinach and tomato. Practical challenge, 5-color bingo. To close this episode, I propose a simple and fun challenge. Try to include 5 colors in your main dish: red, purple, green, white, and brown. For example, you can combine tomato, eggplant, broccoli, garlic, and a cocoa sauce with spices for garnish. Upload the photo to your social media and tag it with the hashtag #Paravencer. Each color symbolizes families of phytonutrients that activate the 5 defense systems. With a simple visual exercise, you can train your eye and your palate to seek out variety. Episode 3 Preview. In the next installment, we'll hear real stories from patients who have used the method, discuss how to customize the plan if you're vegan, have celiac disease, or live in an area with limited access to fresh produce, and take a look at the other side of the story, what's still under scientific debate. We'll also take a preliminary look at the approach's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. A SWOT analysis we'll explore in more detail in episode 4. Thanks for joining me. Remember, every bite counts and science can be right on your plate, ready to work for you. See you soon. Podcast Eating to Overcome Diseases. Episode 3 of 5. Hello. I'm Wellness Torres and I'm back with you in this third episode dedicated to Eat to Beat Disease by William W. Li. Today we'll focus on 3 main sections. First, I'll share real stories of people who, by applying the book's ideas, transformed their health dramatically. Second, we'll look at how to adapt these same recommendations to different lifestyles, vegans, celiacs, people on a budget, or those who live in areas where obtaining fresh produce is a challenge. Finally, we'll discuss the B-side, what the book doesn't fully address, the necessary precautions, and a narrative outline of the SWOT analysis we'll delve into in the next episode. So get comfortable, turn up the volume, and join me for the next few minutes. Stories that inspire and ground the theory. Maria and endometrial cancer. Maria is 52 years old. After surgery for endometrial cancer and radiation therapy, an MRI revealed the threat of a relapse. Her oncologist contacted Dr. Li's team, and along with conventional therapy, they incorporated the 5 for 5 for 5 approach. Maria drank green tea 3 times a day, added cooked tomatoes with olive oil and garlic to her lunch, replaced cold cuts with oily fish, and, above all, filled her plate with colorful vegetables. 6 months later, inflammatory markers in her blood were drastically reduced, and imaging studies no longer showed new vascular growths around the scar tissue. The dietary change did not replace radiation therapy, but it enhanced its effects and allowed Maria to tolerate it better, with less fatigue and nausea. Carlos, fatty liver and pre-diabetes. Carlos, 39, was a fan of energy drinks and processed snacks. A routine checkup revealed sky-high triglycerides and fasting glucose that bordered on pre-diabetes. He decided to follow the 30 plant a week rule and, every morning, made a bowl of oatmeal with berries. He replaced soda with sugar-free herbal teas and dared to make homemade kombucha. 12 weeks later, he had lost 6 kilos, his glycosylated hemoglobin dropped from 5.9% to 5.4%, and a stool analysis showed a significant increase in bifidobacteria, a sign of a healthier gut. Helena and rheumatoid arthritis. Helena, a 65-year-old retiree, suffered from painful flare ups of rheumatoid arthritis. After reading the chapter on immunity, she included shiitake mushrooms, turmeric with pepper, and a daily handful of walnuts. 4 months later, she reported less morning stiffness and halved her anti-inflammatory medication. She attributes her improvement to the regularity of her diet and the consistent gentle movement, a daily 30-minute walk that Li recommends to boost regeneration. These 3 stories show something crucial: diet doesn't act as a magic wand or replace medical treatment, but it is a powerful reinforcement that improves the body's response and quality of life. How to adapt the method to diverse realities. If you are vegan, the model is plant-friendly by definition. It replaces marine-derived omega-3s with chia and flax seeds, as well as walnuts. To ensure protein, it uses lentils, chickpeas, and, above all, fermented soy products like tempeh or miso. Vitamin B12 is not present in plants, so Li himself recommends a weekly sublingual supplement of 2,000 micrograms, easy, affordable, and reliable. If you are celiac, the basis of the approach is naturally gluten-free fruits, vegetables, legumes, and pseudo-cereals. Quinoa, amaranth, and brown rice cover the complex carbohydrate and fiber needs. Just read the labels of industrial sauces and broths, as they sometimes contain traces of wheat. If you live in a food desert, not everyone has a grocery store right around the corner. Li suggests 3 tactics. First, strategically buy canned food, but in a healthy version. Crushed tomatoes, chickpeas, and black beans are rich in polyphenols and, after rinsing to remove excess sodium, are ready to go in the pot. Second, turn to frozen foods. Blueberries and broccoli retain most of their antioxidants even after months of storage. Third, a mini window box garden. With 2 pots, you can grow basil, cilantro, or broccoli microsprouts, which concentrate protective compounds and grow in 10 days. If your budget is tight, the key tool is buying in bulk. A large bag of dried lentils and a sack of brown rice cost less than 2 fast food meals and is enough for 10 lunches. Eggs, canned sardines, and oatmeal are nutrient cost champions. Get organized with batch menus. Cooking, that is, cooking large quantities on the weekend and freezing them, avoids the temptation of spending money on ultra-processed foods during the week. Myths that hinder change and how to dismantle them. The first claims that all dairy products are inflammatory. The book clarifies that natural yogurt and some aged cheeses contain probiotics and peptides that actually reduce inflammation. The second asserts that to lose weight, you must eliminate all fat. However, the fats found in olives, avocados, and nuts improve hormonal regulation of satiety and protect the heart. Another myth proclaims that if a superfood is good for you, consuming it in powder form is doubly effective. Lee emphasizes that the whole food matrix offers fiber and a synergy of phytonutrients that are lost in concentrate. Finally, there is the idea that intermittent fasting automatically neutralizes dietary excesses. In reality, meal timing matters, but the quality of the food is what dictates the tone of the microbiota, sugar stability, and telomere status. Yellow lights and pending issues. Nothing is perfect, and science advances step by step. Some of the book's star compounds are still in early stages of clinical research. Lentinan from shiitake mushrooms, for example, shows promising results in advanced cancer, but the trials are still in phase 2. Another delicate point is dosage. Many studies use quantities impossible to translate into everyday life, such as 10 cups of green tea. The author clarifies that the strength of the method lies in the combination, 2 or 3 cups of tea, plus tomato, plus garlic, plus berries, combine their effects cooperatively. Drug interactions are also a minor issue. Grapefruit can disrupt the enzyme that breaks down antihypertensives and statins. If you take medications, it's a good idea to consult before adding large amounts of citrus to your routine. Finally, the gap in access to fresh food persists in certain neighborhoods. Lee proposes adaptations, but acknowledges that the struggle to improve the distribution chain and make vegetables affordable remains a public policy challenge. Strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats in narrative form. As a preview of the detailed SWOT analysis we'll present in the next episode, let's describe each pillar in a narrative format. Among its strengths is its scientific solidity. The book is based on peer-reviewed studies and updated meta-analyses. Furthermore, the approach is flexible. It doesn't require adhering to a strict vegan diet or a carnivore regime, it simply encourages the addition of medicinal foods. Regarding opportunities, the main one is the possibility of preventing or delaying chronic diseases on a large scale and, in the process, reducing healthcare costs. Another opportunity is to promote local agriculture of phytochemical-rich products, generating employment and agricultural diversity. But there are also weaknesses. Long-term clinical evidence is still limited for certain exotic foods, and in low-income regions, some recommendations are difficult to implement. On the threat side, we find the power of the ultra-processed food industry, which can influence food policies, as well as the risk that supplement companies will distort the message and sell unsupported miracle powders. The media confusion generated by extreme diets that appear and disappear may also overshadow Lee's findings. Frequently asked questions arriving in your inbox. Several people have written to me to ask if coffee negates the benefits of green tea. The answer is no. They are different compounds and can coexist. Another concern comes from listeners who are over 80 and fear arriving late to the prevention party. Research in blue zones, places where people live past 100, shows that even small dietary improvements reduce inflammatory markers within a few weeks, regardless of age. There are also those who wonder if it's mandatory to give up red meat. The method allows for this, as long as the frequency is moderate and it's accompanied by a plant-based rainbow that counteracts pro-inflammatory compounds. Practical challenge of the week, the rainbow on your plate. I have a simple challenge for you: prepare a main dish containing 5 different colors. Red can be tomato or pomegranate, purple, eggplant or red cabbage, green, broccoli or spinach, white, garlic or onion, and brown, mushrooms or a sprinkle of cocoa, depending on the recipe. Upload a photo to your social media with the hashtag #CompaRavencer. In addition to being visually appealing, this rainbow guarantees a diversity of phytochemicals that simultaneously activate your 5 defense systems. What's coming in episode 4? In the next installment, we'll take a closer look at SWOT, discuss how to read labels to identify so-called hidden nutrition, and offer a 7-day plan with recipes that take less than 20 minutes to prepare. If you know someone who thinks healthy eating is expensive, boring, or unattainable, please forward this podcast to them. Science and taste buds can be allies, not enemies. Thanks for joining me. Remember, every bite can become medicine and consistency is more powerful than perfection. See you soon in episode 4. Podcast Eating to Overcome Diseases. Episode 4 of 5. Hello, health advocacy community. I'm Wellness Torres and I welcome you to the penultimate leg of our Eat Journey. To Beat Disease by Dr. William W. Lee. Today we're keeping 3 promises, delving into the method SWOT analysis, learning how to decipher labels to avoid what we'll call disguised nutrition, and finally, sharing a 7-day plan with quick recipes already in 20 minutes or less that activate the 5 defense systems we've been talking about. All of this, as always, in clear language and without tables. So, uncork your water bottle, or your green tea, relax, and let the information flow. Complete SWOT analysis. In previous episodes, I outlined a summary version, but today we're going to break down each point so you have a solid mental map before taking action. 1.1 Strengths. The first major strength of Lee's approach is its scientific basis. More than 200 peer-reviewed studies support the anti-angiogenic, regenerative, probiotic, and antioxidant effects of the foods she recommends. These are not intuitions or isolated testimonials, but rather medical literature accumulated over decades. The second strength is cultural flexibility. She doesn't impose vegan, Mediterranean, or keto labels. Rather, she invites each person, depending on their culture and access, to build their own menu of protective foods. A third strength is positive language. Instead of demonizing foods, she focuses on adding defenses. This works better psychologically because the brain hates feeling something is being taken away. Instead, it is motivated when benefits are added. 1.2 Opportunities. If this model were widely disseminated, the prevention of chronic diseases could translate into colossal healthcare savings. It is estimated that cancer associated with an inadequate diet alone costs billions in treatment each year. Another opportunity is to promote sustainable agriculture. When demand for tomatoes, broccoli, legumes, and berries grows, farmers diversify crops, reducing dependence on monocultures and protecting the soil. Furthermore, there is the possibility of educating the next generation from school. Teaching the 5-color method or the 5x5x5 method as part of the science curriculum would plant the seeds for early prevention. 1.3 Weaknesses. Nothing is perfect. One weakness is that certain exotic foods, for example, camu or some Amazonian berries, are expensive or impossible to obtain in many regions. The good news is that Lee offers local substitutes, but the message may be lost if the reader is left with the fashion list and not the logic of phytochemical families. Another weakness is the need for long-term clinical studies. Many trials last weeks or, at most, months. Large groups need to be followed for years to quantify how many cancer cases are actually avoided with the plan. Finally, for those who rely on delivered meals, school cafeterias, prisons, hospitals, the ability to choose specific foods is limited. Systemic implementation remains a challenge. 1.4 Threats. The most obvious threat comes from the ultra-processed food and sugary drink industry, which invests heavily in marketing and lobbying. If front-of-package labeling policies or taxes on harmful products are promoted, these companies are likely to intensify their disinformation campaigns. Another threat is the fad for miracle supplements. Companies selling superfood powders promise quick cures. Dr. Lee doesn't demonize supplements, but emphasizes that the entire food matrix offers irreplaceable synergies. If people believe that a capsule is enough, they miss the essence of the method. Finally, there is the threat of media confusion. Extreme diets emerge that contradict each other, and in the end, the public throws in the towel because it all sounds like a guru of the moment. Our job as communicators is precisely to separate the noise from the evidence. Reading labels, uncovering disguised nutrition. Now let's move on to the supermarket, where the war for your taste buds is waged in every aisle. To activate your defense systems, it's not enough to simply add virtuous foods, you also need to identify traps. Here are 5 quick clues. 1. The ingredient list is your magnifying glass. If a product has more than 5 unpronounceable components, it almost certainly contains additives that your microbiota doesn't recognize as food. 2. The order matters. Ingredients are listed from highest to lowest. If sugar is listed first or second, the package may scream high in fiber, but it's actually a fake dessert. 3. Zero fat doesn't mean healthy. Many light yogurts remove the natural fat and add starches or corn syrup to restore texture. The result, a glucose spike and no benefit to your microbiome. 4. Hidden oils. Packaged crackers often contain palm oil or refined soy, both of which are pro-inflammatory when consumed daily. Switch to homemade versions or make your own crackers with chickpea flour and seeds. 5. The high-protein trap. Some fitness bars achieve that title, but they include artificial sweeteners that disrupt your beneficial bacteria. Instead, pack a handful of nuts and some aged cheese cubes, protein, good fat, and no weird powders. When choosing a packaged product, ask yourself, would my great-grandmother recognize this as food? If the answer is no, leave it on the shelf and head to the produce aisle. There are no labels to decipher. Nature already made the perfect packaging. Express plan, recipes less than or equal to 20 minutes. I promised practicality. Here's a rough outline of 7 lunches and 7 dinners. Adjust for allergies or availability, but retain the logic of multiple colors and diverse phytochemical sources. Each recipe takes 20 minutes or less to prepare, including chopping, mixing, and serving. Day 1. Lunch, warm chickpea salad with spinach, cherry tomatoes, and olive oil. Finish with a seasonal fruit. Dinner, grilled salmon fillet with turmeric, accompanied by steamed broccoli. Day 2. Lunch, black bean tacos with avocado and cilantro salsa. Dinner, mushroom, onion, and bell pepper omelette, accompanied by a green salad. Day 3. Lunch, whole grain quinoa with apple chunks, raisins, walnuts, and feta cheese. Dinner, quick red lentil, carrot, and ginger soup. Day 4. Lunch, lettuce wraps with shredded chicken, grated carrots, and a garlicky Greek yogurt sauce. Dinner, whole wheat pasta tossed with homemade tomato sauce, basil, and a splash of red wine. Day 5. Lunch, bowl of brown rice with marinated tofu, cucumber, avocado, and sesame seeds. Dinner, baked cake with a pistachio and lemon crust, plus a pan-fried vegetable mix. Day 6. Lunch, sourdough bread. Sandwich with hummus, shredded beets, and arugula. Dinner, stir-fried broccoli, pak choy, and strips of lean beef, seasoned with ginger and low-sodium soy sauce. Day 7. Lunch, rainbow salad with red cabbage, carrots, edamame, and tahini dressing. Dinner, homemade whole wheat pizza topped with tomato sauce, mushrooms, olives, and oregano. With these 14 dishes, you'll cross off more than 50 protective foods in 1 week. Breakfasts and snacks? Stick to the fiber and color and protein formula: oatmeal with berries, natural yogurt with seeds, apple with peanut butter, or simply a handful of almonds. Coffee and green tea are welcome, but remember to balance them with water. Let's imagine a week set in motion. Let's say you're up for the challenge. On Monday, you make the warm chickpea salad. You spend 15 minutes and save 2 servings for Tuesday. On Tuesday night, while watching your favorite TV show, you chop vegetables for Wednesday's lentil soup. You store them in a Tupperware container, and the next day, you just pour everything into a pot of hot broth. On Thursday and Friday, you repeat the same routine and discover that quick and healthy cooking is more about planning than being a professional chef. On Saturday, you choose whole wheat pizza as a celebration of the week just completed, and on Sunday, you prep quinoa and brown rice for the next batch. The key is consistency, not militant rigidity. If you eat a cupcake one day, the world won't come to an end. Just make sure most of your choices follow the logic in the book. Traveling from theory to public policy. I can't close this episode without reflecting on how these ideas could scale to the societal level. Imagine hospitals serving polyphenol-rich soups instead of sugar-filled gelatins. Or school cafeterias celebrating a weekly rainbow day where children discover new vegetables. Governments could subsidize the farming of legumes and cruciferous vegetables, so that the price of a bag of broccoli competes with that of industrially produced potato chips. This is already happening in some municipalities in Japan, where subsidizing fresh fruits and vegetables reduced the incidence of hypertension by 5 years. At the individual level, you do your part, but the real revolution occurs when economic and health policy aligns with science. Quick questions, clear answers. Can I start if I'm taking several medications? Yes, but consult your doctor, especially if you are introducing citrus fruits like grapefruit or large amounts of cruciferous vegetables, which can interfere with thyroid medications. Will it work if I only like 3 vegetables? Better than nothing, but your microbiota appreciates variety. Start with those 3 favorite vegetables and try a new one each week. What if I don't like cooking? Many stores sell pre-cooked vegetables or wok kits. With a wok, olive oil, and reduced salt soy sauce, you can prepare a complete dish in 10 minutes. Farewell and preview of the final episode. In the final episode, we'll come full circle. We'll take stock of what we've learned, answer questions that keep coming in, and outline an action plan for the next 90 days, with realistic goals and ways to measure progress. We'll also share a quick guide to medicinal foods, by color and benefit, for you to post on your refrigerator or send to anyone you like. Thank you for your time, your curiosity, and your commitment. Remember, health is not a destination, but a daily practice. Every time you choose a dish with intention, you train your body to be its own doctor. We're on the 5th and final installment. Until then, eat with joy and let science work on your plate. Podcast Eating to Beat Diseases. Episode 5 of 5, Closing and Running Text. Last stop of this trip. Hi, I'm Wellness Torres, and today we reach the 5th and final episode of our tour of Eat to Beat Disease. If you've listened to the previous 4 installments, you've already mastered the basics, the 5 internal defense systems, the logic of adding protective foods, the myths that should be dispelled, and how to read labels to avoid pitfalls. In this farewell, we'll do 3 things. First, recap the most important points in a cohesive narrative, so you never forget why your plate can be your first aid kit. Second, we'll design a 90-day plan together with clear goals and simple metrics. Third, I'll answer the audience's final questions and leave a final manifesto, a sort of compass for your daily life. Ready? Let's go. Quick recap, why all this matters. Dr. William W. Lee approaches health from a very simple idea: the human body comes pre-built with mechanisms to repair damage, patrol suspicious cells, and put out internal fires. The problem is that, with the modern industrial diet, those mechanisms become hijacked, overloaded, or, in some cases, completely silenced. What the book demonstrates, with studies in cells, animals, and humans, is that certain foods can turn the right switches back on. Every bite of tomato cooked with olive oil directs angiogenesis to safe ground, every cup of green tea activates antioxidant genes, every spoonful of plain yogurt strengthens the troop of friendly microbes that train your immune system. This approach isn't a fad, but rather a way of understanding nutrition as an integrated part of biology. It's preventative medicine in the literal sense: before diseases escalate, you give your body the tools to prevent them. And if you're already living with a condition, a nutritional strategy can become a second front that helps traditional treatments work better and with fewer adverse effects. The 90-day plan, from listener to protagonist. Short challenges generate bursts of enthusiasm, but they quickly evaporate. 90 days, on the other hand, are enough to solidify habits, notice measurable changes, and anchor a new identity, that of someone who eats to heal. Here's a step-by-step outline. Days 1 to 7, audit and small victory. During the first week, you don't change anything, you just observe. Write down everything you eat and drink. Use a notebook or an app, it doesn't matter. At the end of the week, calculate how many different colors appeared on your plate and how many ultra-processed foods made it in. The goal isn't to judge yourself, but to photograph your reality. On day 7, choose a small victory, maybe swapping your afternoon soda for green tea, or adding berries to your breakfast. Days 8 to 30, rule of 3 signings. Now you apply the 3 check-in rule daily. Before the end of the day, you must have added an anti-angiogenic food, a probiotic food, and an antioxidant food. For example, cooked tomato for lunch, natural yogurt mid-afternoon, and a cup of green tea after dinner. The combinations are endless. This triad effortlessly covers 3 of the 5 defense systems. Days 31 to 60, diversity sprint. The second month introduces the goal of 30 plants per week. Count the chickpeas, count the turmeric, count the mint in your tea. If you're short on a Friday, add a handful of parsley to your rice and you're done. The microbiota responds within days, you'll notice better digestion, fewer cravings, and, according to many listeners, a more stable mood. Days 61 to 90, tune and measure. In the final third, you optimize. If you're a hardcore carnivore, reduce red meat to 2 servings per week and surround them with vegetables. If you're vegetarian, ensure omega-3 intake with walnuts or chia seeds. Additionally, you choose a personal metric, it could be your waist circumference, your energy level on a scale of 10, or your heartburn frequency. Record the metric on day 60 and day 90. Seeing the change in black and white is psychological fuel. When you're done, decide which practices will stay in place and which ones require more time. Don't go back to square one, evolve the plan. Final questions from the audience. Can I follow the methodology if I'm lactose intolerant? Of course. Yogurt and kefir, being fermented, contain less lactose. Many lactose intolerant people tolerate them well. But if they still bother you, opt for unsweetened coconut versions or miso, sauerkraut, and kombucha as sources of probiotics. I work nights, my schedule is backwards. Do I lose the benefits? No. The immune system responds to nutrients, not the position of the sun. Just try to maintain consistent eating windows, eat breakfast when you wake up, even if it's 5 p.m., and spread your punches throughout your biological day. How can I introduce this to my family without getting weird looks? Start by changing the side dishes, replace fries with sautéed broccoli or rainbow salad, but leave the main dish the same. Over time, incorporate new ingredients into family recipes. Chili con carne can accept lentils without losing its soul, tostadas can have avocado and tomato without anyone seeing them as rabbit food. A pocket guide for your refrigerator. Before we say goodbye, I'll dictate a reminder that you can write on a giant post-it note and stick where you store your food. Bright red, tomato, watermelon, pomegranate, red chili. Deep purple, blueberries, eggplant, purple cabbage. Vibrant green, broccoli, spinach, arugula, avocado. Aromatic white, garlic, onion, leek. Deep brown, cocoa, mushrooms, black tea. Daily fermented, yogurt, kefir, kimchi, miso, sauerkraut. Noble fats, extra virgin olive oil, nuts, seeds. Herbs and spices, turmeric with pepper, rosemary, oregano, mint. Liquids of life, water, green tea, unsweetened filtered coffee. If your dish combines at least 3 colors from the list, a fermented food, and a rich fat, you're on the right track. Mark a heavy check mark each day you achieve it. After a month, your post-it will be a mosaic of successes. The final manifesto, eating is an act of sovereignty. I want to close with a powerful idea. Eating is not a passive act, it's a political, biological, and, we might say, spiritual act. Every purchase you make at the market or the supermarket sends a signal to the productive system, this is what I value, this is what I want to see more of. Every bite that reaches your mouth communicates with your bacteria, your genes, and your immune cells. We are not defenseless against the epidemic of chronic diseases. We hold a steering wheel in our hands. Turning it requires clear information, consistency, and, above all, the conviction that our bodies are worthy of daily care. Dr. Lee doesn't promise immortality or sell instant solutions. He proposes something more humble and more revolutionary, reweaving the relationship between agriculture, science, and the family table. Our challenge, as individuals and as a society, is to make this philosophy accessible to everyone, not just those who can afford imported organic fruit. This means demanding public policies, supporting local farmers, and sharing knowledge with empathy, not moral superiority. Thanks and forking paths. We've reached the end of this 5-part series. If you have any questions, listen again, take notes, talk to your doctor, and experiment. Science advances, and this podcast is only meant to spark curiosity. I'll leave you with an invitation. The next time you're making breakfast, take 10 seconds to observe the colors on your plate and ask yourself, am I feeding my defenses or the enemy? That micro-reflection, repeated every day, can change the course of your health far more than you can imagine. Thank you for your time, attention, and trust. If you found this content helpful, please share it. You never know who you could help with a simple click. I'm Wellness Torres, and this was Eating to Conquer Disease. May you have a colorful, flavorful, and well-being journey. See you later.